Hey everyone, it's Kay, and for today's swatch sesh, I'm featuring Cracked Polish's Acquired Taste Collection, which they sent over as PR. Cracked Polish is also the sponsor of today's video, so thank you so much to Cracked for that. The Acquired Taste Collection features 8 Prugly nail polishes. And I'll be honest that as a person who is quite fixated on pink, I am a little scared, but I'm also curious to be able to thoroughly explore a Prugly collection and see how I actually feel about Pruglies. Aside from that though, we also have the November Jelly of the Month and a bonus shade. So let's get into the sesh, and then I'll be back with some details about Cracked Polish's Black Friday sale, and I'll also share some of my thoughts. We kick off the sesh with Crack's November Jelly of the Month, which is described by the brand as a blackened red jelly. I would also add that at first glance, the polish looks rather brown. However, if you take a moment to really focus on the tones, you can see that there's some red in the base. Just keep in mind that it seems like this polish may not be one where you're immediately gonna think red when you look at it. You can see the rich, dark tone that I'm left with. And for those of you who may be curious, when it comes to jellies, Cracked does focus on the more buildable, more opaque type of jellies. You won't see much translucency, but you will get that nice, glossy, more plump type of look. Next up in line is Squashed, which is bringing all the funk with its unapologetic color combo. Starting from the ground up, we have a muddy or murky yellow base that is generously fed with those green shimmers that really give this one a nice little dazzle. I do suspect that the base is more jelly-like based on what I'm seeing here, because there is some translucency, which also supports the full visual effect of those green shimmers. It really adds some liveliness to this really muted yellow, and in indirect lighting, that green fully shifts into this really pretty pink, but you'll only see that at the extreme angles. Overall, I think that if the word Prugly existed on Wikipedia, I would totally expect to see a picture of Squashed on there. Moving on to what I think is the quirkiest polish in this collection, Cranberry Mold starts off with what the brand calls a rouge blush base. Although in the bottle it looks quite dark, but as you can see as I swatch it, it's actually a light pink tone, and it is partnering up with flakies that shift between greens, golds, and pinks to create one of the weirdest polishes in a good way that I've recently seen, but it makes sense considering the name. So take a look at the result here after 2 coats. There was a loose hand when it was the flaky's turn to go into the container, and notice the shift in color when I move to more indirect lighting and angle my nail in a more extreme way, which makes those blues and even purples come out to play, while the greens and the golds are definitely the more predominant color under more regular lighting conditions like the one in this final bottle shot. Next up, we have a polish that doesn't initially strike me as Prugly, but I do think that orange polishes have been known to not be the most popular of shades, right? So what we have in Ginger Snapped is a burnt orange base, which I know looks quite bright, but that is due to the addition of those golden elements that look very shimmery, and they do an excellent job at casting a nice sheen throughout the nail. You can see that in action here as I move the nail around, those highlights popping right where the light hits it, while other areas of the nail remain darker or just like more of a plain orange tone. Now, if you ask me, I'd say this one's pretty while also being Prugly because it's orange, but I don't know. What are your thoughts here? Our first magnetic has been picked. Here we have Gherkin, and I'll be showing this unmagnetized first, then in the cat eye and velvet styles. Right now, what you're seeing is the even mixture of a purple base with green magnetic pigment and pink shimmer. However, the magnetic pigment is clearly dominating the look, although if you lock in, you can catch some of that purple on the edges of my nail and even some slight pops of pink. Let's talk about that green though. It definitely has some yellow tones. It's giving more of an antique type of green, which is on par with the Prugly theme. And if I angle my nail further away from the light source, you'll see those blue tones coming out to play. But let's get to the science and pull that magnetic curtain to the center, which reveals this deep purple base glistening with pops of pink shimmer. This is an amazing color combo. I did not know that this was considered a Prugly, but I digress. You'll get to see that blue color right up next to the green under certain lighting conditions. However, there is more to see. So here I have the velvet effect, which causes all of the green pigment to float up towards the surface, creating what is probably one of the most striking magnetic effects that you can get out of a magnetic. The way the pigment flashes in this style is just so mesmerizing. It is one of those things that you don't really ever get tired of. We're leaving the pickles behind to reach for the cream of mushroom. What does that even taste like? I don't know. I think we have entered deep Prugly territory here, you guys. I'm a little scared. So, cream of mushroom is offering us what Crack describes as a dark tan base that contains black flakes. They also said you might hate this polish. I don't know. You tell me in the comment section. Do you hate this polish? I would also say though that this feels like a lighter type of tan instead of a darker one, but I also guess that depends on what you're comparing it to. And at this point, I do feel like we're in the Prugly boonies. This is an expert level Prugly. For those of you who are madly in love with Pruglies, this is going to be right up your alley. Cream of Mushroom is the CEO of the Acquired Taste collection. I will say though that I love the black flakies. I am definitely a sucker for those. Interestingly enough, we were able to escape the boonies and we landed in high class society with Caviar. We're at the other end of the extreme now, and starting from the ground up, we have a black base that isn't quite noticeable because it is drowning in fine purple and green shimmers. I am on that second coat right now, but if you were to rewind to the first coat, you'd see the excellent coverage that I was able to achieve with just that first coat. So check it out. The end result can really just be initially described as an off black shimmery purple, with those shimmers really coming alive when the light hits it, because outside of the light it looks just even darker, more like a almost black type of color. Notice those green colors shining through under more indirect lighting and also at very extreme angles. And I'm just left feeling like this polish is actually so nice. I didn't really know this type of color could be a Prugly. Moving on to Cracked Polish's bonus shade, which is Thin Ice. This is another magnetic, and it's actually described as a magnetic topper. However, I am going to build this up in 3 unmagnetized coats to see what we can get out of this polish. And as expected, that base is extremely sheer. So you are pretty much solely relying and counting on those silver magnetic particles to be the provider of coverage here. Right now, I am finishing up this third and final coat, and at this point, you can basically tell what we're going to end up with here. Unmagnetized, this polish looks like a shimmery silver shade. Remember that there are no other components here, so you're really just left with a sheet of silver over your nail. But if we do some girl science, you'll get that clean magnetic line grabbing your attention while the base remains in this really neat jelly-like smoky appearance. Again, this is with 3 coats. That's why the base is as dark as it is. Let me show you the velvet style. I did this one in 2 coats just because we got a lot of magnetic pigment here, folks. So the velvet style is gonna look just fine with 2 coats. You'll get that flash, almost like the flash in reflective equipment. It's pretty strong. And if you're the type that likes to get some manny attention, I think this polish is definitely going to direct some eyeballs to your nails. There is yet another topper to swatch in this sesh, and it is Make It Pretty, which you might have noticed has a tint to it, right? This is a rose gold holographic glitter topper that I'm going to show off in a few different ways, but I do want to wear it alone first to see what a little nail seasoning can do. The glitters here are quite fine, but they're not the finest I've ever seen. There's certainly smaller size glitters out there, but I do appreciate the size of these though, because rather than big pops of color, you get more of a consistent twinkle running throughout the nail. I decided to try this one over Chokeberry, which definitely added a magical touch to this very dark shade, and I also added 2 coats with thin ice. This is a double topper look, folks, a topper over a topper, and I think it's awesome. The rainbows look really pretty alongside this predominantly silver look. I also feel like there's a comedic twist here too. Make It Pretty is kind of like the medicine, the antidote to this Prugly collection. Next, we have the last magnetic of the collection, which is called Fermented. We're going to take a look at the unmagnetized version first, and this polish contains gold to green magnetic pigment in a dark red jelly base. I think that for the most part, all of those components are pretty obvious even in its unmagnetized state. You can clearly recognize and individually notice that red base and those gold to green tones, which really serve to create a very elegant, moody type of look. It does seem kind of fancy to me, and since those shimmers do shift to green, I tested that out and surprisingly even caught some blue tones in there as well. Magnetizing this in the cat eye effect, however, is going to give you a completely different manicure. That base is left nice and clean. It's almost like sweeping a floor. Any trace of magnetic pigment was pulled to the center, leaving us with this really cool color combo and just a whole lot of contrast. The velvet style though takes it to its next evolution, where the magnetic pigment creates that amazing golden cast over the nail, and you can catch that strong sheen as you move the nail around, creating that 3D effect that the velvet style is famously known for. This is yet another polish in the collection that I'm having trouble categorizing as a Prugly. I just find it delicious, but that could also just be Crack's talent. And those were the swatches. So let me give you my thoughts and then we'll get into the Black Friday details. Did we or did we not get levels to the Prugly? Because I think there are levels to them, and I have created some categories here. So in the expert level Prugly category, I am gonna put Cream of Mushroom and also Cranberry Mold as expert level Pruglies, meaning that you're either gonna love or hate these, but there is an intermediate level though. So we get ginger snapped and squashed in the intermediate level, or at least that's where I'm putting them. And I think these two are for people who are ready to get a little bit wild, a little funky. Then we got the beginner level Prugly. So in that category, I would put Gherkin, also Caviar, and lastly I would put Fermented. So to me, these are the polishes that I think most people are going to be attracted to. We have the antidote to all this prugliness too, though, with Make It Pretty. I don't know, that's just me. Let me know your thoughts. How would you categorize these? And while you think about that, I'm going to give an honorable mention to the magnetics in this collection, and also just a shout out to Cracked for maintaining a very lubricated wrist and wrist joints. You know, they have a very loose hand when they go to dump in all that magnetic pigment. There's a wide range of motion, which you guys saw in the swatches. We're all gonna be beneficiaries of that. There's no lack of magnetic pigment in these magnetic polishes. So no Pruglies from me, but you just got 7 from Cracked, so I think we're good here now. The collection launches on November 28th, which is actually the same day that Cracked's Black Friday sale begins. And that sale is gonna run through December 1st. You're gonna get 20% off site-wide. It is a site-wide sale. And if you only had money for one polish, I am going to go with, I'm gonna have to go with Thin Ice. If you had money for 2, I would add in Gherkin. If you had money for 3, I am going to go with Fermented. And if you had an extra 13 laying around, $13, I would add in Squashed too. So I think those were my top 4 favorites. And I think that wraps up this video. So thank you so much for being the best, for being here, for hanging out, for checking out this collection with me. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you on the new. Bye-bye.